Welcome back everyone, it's Jennifer. Today's video shows yet another way you can add some texture and shine to your stamped images. I will be showing you how to do this using some new Hero Arts products. Hero Arts just came out with a large release. It's mostly holiday, but there are a few non-holiday products. It includes stamps and dies and stencils and more. So I'm going to use some of the holiday images on this card. You can see that great shine on the holly leaves and a little bit of texture too. There are many ways you can achieve this look, but I think today's is super easy and a lot of fun. Now, as I mentioned, I just want to go through this real quick, but Hero Arts has come out with a bunch of new products. Here's what the catalog looks like. I normally like to do a product release close-up video when I really like all the stamps in a release, and I want to do one for these new products, but I don't have them all yet to do that video. But the release is fantastic, and I highly encourage you to check it out. If you click this link or in the YouTube description below, it'll take you over to my blog where I have a discount code on all Hero Arts products over at Simon Says Stamp and also a giveaway, so be sure to check that out. But for today's video, I'm going to use this new holly set from Hero Arts. This is a prototype, so it's not completely a finished stamp set, but these images are in the final stamp set. So yours will look finished. Mine's just a prototype. I'm using heavyweight cardstock today. This is 110-pound Neenah cardstock, just because I'm going to be doing a lot of heat embossing, and this heavier weight doesn't warp as much. Now I'm going to be working on this stamp pad from Inkadinkado. I just find that when I have solid images like this holly one, it just gives a better stamped image, but you could just do it on a flat surface if you want to. So I'm using some Simon Says Stamp green ink. Now you could use Hero Arts shadow inks. They're the same formulation. I'm going to be using both on this card today. And what I like about this ink is it'll be a little splotchy and uneven at first, but it dries nice and smooth and solid. You don't get any uneven stamping with it. And that's what I wanted for these holly leaves. And you'll see when we do the next step that there's even more you can do with these inks. So again, you could either use the Simon Says Stamp inks or the Hero Arts inks for this. Now, as you can see, these leaves look great as is, so you could make this card much faster if you skip all the other steps. In fact, I have lots of steps that you can skip along the way if you want to, but I wanted to show you everything that this technique and the stamp set are capable of. So I just did basic green stamping here, but I decided I wanted to add some darker green to the center of all these holly leaves. So this is Forever Green. It's a Hero Arts shadow ink. I'm going to ink up my stamp completely, but then I'm going to dab some of the ink away with a dry cloth. So I'm just leaving the ink towards the center of the leaves and also on the little stem. So there's just a little bit of ink, and then I do a quick dab of all of the stamp. So there's just a little bit of this ink on it. Then I'm going to look through the clear stamp and line it up exactly with the image I already stamped. And look at, you get that olive or darker green color towards the center of the leaves. This is just a great way to add the look of dimension to stamping. This is one of the great things about clear stamps, is you can look through them and layer up stamping to get that look of dimension. Again, you could skip this if you wanted to, but I really think that it adds quite a bit, and it doesn't take that long. So I'm going to look through the stamp and stamp right on top of what I did before. Now, if you look there closely, I didn't perfectly stamp on top of what I did in the first place, but it really doesn't matter. Nobody will ever notice. It can be slightly offset. It's not a problem. But I can kind of look through the stamp, through the veins in the little leaves, to look through and line them up with the white underneath. Okay, so you can see that depth that you get to your stamping now. Now this is another step you could skip if you wanted to, but what I love about this stamp set from Hero Arts is that it has the outline image that perfectly lines up with the solid image. So this is here Simon Says Stamp Midnight Green ink. It's a dark green, and look at that. It stamps right over the outline. So it looks like you took a ton of time to color in those leaves, but you really didn't. You just stamped them. So you could skip this if you wanted to, or you could gold heat emboss this outline if you wanted to. You could have done the outline first and then the solid stamping over it. Whatever works best for you. I'm kind of slightly offsetting this so a little bit of that white shows through on the veins in the leaves. I just think it adds a little bit to the dimension. But I love how you can just kind of layer all of this up, and this stamp set makes it super easy. They also have a poinsettia stamp set like this where you stamp the solid and the outline separately and it lines up perfectly. Okay, so now I wanted to go ahead and add the shine and texture to the holly leaves, because holly leaves kind of have that shiny look to it. Now you could, again, skip this step. There's lots of steps here you could skip if you wanted to, but I think this really adds a lot. I'm just going to stamp right on top of the holly once again, one more time, with Versamark ink. So this is just a clear sticky ink. You won't see it at first. Now this is a clear gloss ultra high embossing powder from WOW. You could also use Ranger's ultra thick embossing enamel, UTEE, if you wanted to. to. I like this because it's clear, but the UTE is a little bit thicker. Now the trick to this is that powder doesn't really stick all that well to the Versamark, and if you just take your heat gun right on top, it might blow some of the powder away. So I actually heat from behind. So my heat gun is actually behind the paper, and look at it, still melts through and causes the embossing powder on top to melt. And once it started melting, I flip and I come to the front to finish it off. And look at that great thick clear embossing that you get. Now, if you don't have a really thick embossing powder like this, you could layer several layers of regular clear embossing powder, but you have to do like 2 or 3 or 4 layers to get this thickness. You could also cover the leaves with glossy accents, but that would take a little bit more time and it would result in a perfectly smooth, raised image. And I kind of like that there is an uneven texture to this clear coating that you get from this embossing powder. I just think it adds some fun texture and shine. Okay, so I'm adding some more on here. You can see again, I'm heating it from behind so that I don't blow all the powder off. And then I'm going to go ahead, once it starts melting, I move the heat to the front, and there we end up with the great raised shine that you get from this ultra high embossing powder. Okay, so this last one I'm doing the same thing. Again, if you wanted to make this even thicker, you could go ahead and while it's still hot, shake on some more of that embossing powder and then heat it again. So there we have the shine on our holly leaves. It's pretty easy to do. It doesn't take that long at all. This will be a great product to cover die cuts too. I like to cover die cuts with embossing powder. Okay, so now I want to gold heat emboss my sentiment. I love this sentiment that's in the stamp set. It says Happy Holidays. Go ahead and heat set that. And I think that gold is a fun little touch. Now sometimes if you get powder where you don't want it, sorry my head's in the way there, I just go ahead and scratch it away with a craft knife and no one will ever know. Now I'm using some little enamel dots from Doodlebug here to add berries. You could also use the berries that are in the stamp set and just red heat emboss them, or you could use like little stickles, drops of red glitter stickles here, or punch circles, but I love these enamel dots. And by the way, they don't stick real well, so I always put a little strong liquid adhesive behind them to make sure they stay. Now I'm going to have a little bit of red note card stick off the side or peek off the side. So I'm stamping this new Hero Arts in Basic Gray image with red royal ink just along the edge of a red note card. I love this background stamp because it could be playful or it could be classy, like if you did it with gold embossing powder, and it kind of goes with just any style of card. I just love it. So I have a little bit of a peeking out the side. I just think that's a fantastic background because it's not too distracting. Now I felt like it needed a finishing edge, so I cut a super thin strip of gold foil paper. I love this foil cardstock, and I'm going to add it right along the edge of our stamped piece. So this foil cardstock pack is from Die Cuts with a View, and there's a bunch of different colors in there. I like the silver and the gold and the bronze and the pool and the green and the blue. I like all the colors in it. It's got a bunch of good colors, and a little goes a long way. You don't have to use a lot of it on a project to make it pop. Now, if you don't have this gold cardstock, you could just cover a strip of white cardstock with gold embossing powder, and then it would perfectly match the sentiment that you've already done. Okay, so now this is one of those times when I probably just should have stopped, but I kind of got carried away, which I sometimes do. I wanted to use this Hero Arts gold spray. I love the gold. I just love the gold. You want to shake it super well, and you could squirt it on your craft sheet, but I did it in a cup that I rinse out and I use over and over again. That way I don't get spray everywhere and I don't have to get a box to spray in. What I do is I mix it really good with a paintbrush, and then I put little drops onto my card. You can kind of paint them to whatever size you want. Now you could kind of flick it off the paintbrush onto your card, but I'm sometimes a control freak when it comes to card making, and that's not controllable for me. So in this case, I didn't want to mess up anything, and I didn't want to mask or try to wipe it off the holly or cover up my sentiment. So I'm just kind of making my own little splatters. I think it would have been better if I would have only done like, maybe 5 or 6 little dots, but I kept going. I'm not sure why. But what I really like is when this dries, you end up with this gold shine sitting on top of the paper, and it's just beautiful. And you can do more of this than you could, say, little enamel dots or something else. I just love the finishing touch of it. You can paint with this too if you wanted to. So there you have it, a way to add some texture and shine to a stamped image, and also a peek at the new Hero Arts products. Now, if you're interested in these products, I link below to everything in my YouTube description, or go over to my blog where I have that discount code for the Hero Arts products over at Simon Says Stamp, and also I have a giveaway and much, much more. Thanks so much for watching once again, and I hope you stop back by soon.